Edward MacDowell first studied at the Paris Conservatory and then went on to the Frankfurt Academy for more training as pianist and composer. He's from a generation of American composers from the 19th century who actually were musically trained and educated in Europe. It was at the Frankfurt Academy that he befriended Franz Liszt through his various instructors and professors. And Franz Liszt was one of the first champions of Edward MacDowell's music, piano music. And in fact, he would later on go on to play this concerto, Piano Concerto No. 2, in Europe himself. He would take it up in Europe. So after many years of living in Europe, Edward MacDowell decided to come back to the United States, and right away there was a position for him. First teaching in Boston, both composition and piano, and later moving to Columbia University and establishing the first music department and teaching in New York. This concerto, even though it was completed in Europe and Franz Liszt was very aware of it, Edward MacDowell premiered it with the New York Philharmonic. In the traditional European style, it was in sonata form. However, in the late 19th century style, where every composer, Grieg, Schumann, Liszt, many others, were trying to break the genre of being predictive. And gone are the days of early Beethoven, Mozart, and Haydn of the 100 measures of introduction, possibly with the first theme, possibly not. And MacDowell, in the tradition of late 19th century, begins this work in kind of a whispery, nostalgic way. And the piano eventually comes in with the first solid theme in a cadenza fashion. So there's this incredible bravura outburst, and it continues for a while, and the orchestra being very responsive with powerful responses. Then it quiets down again and goes back into the dream world of the opening, this time with clearly articulating the theme of the opening. And the piano comes in for a second outburst, different material, but full of whimsy and full of basically virtuosity at the service of the music. MacDowell had that kind of a technique as well. He was a very, very superior pianist himself. So the movement starts with soft pianissimo, softly, and ends with triple pianissimo. The second movement is inspired by a London production of Much Ado. And that very night that his wife and he had seen the play, he came home and wrote down what he thought would be an orchestral piece. Now, they saw the straight play. They did not hear any music. So he incorporated that theme and that material, depicting the sprites and elves and spirits from the play, as the second movement. And the second movement is a non-stop scherzo, again full of virtuoso writing, but it's brief. It's about 4.5 minutes. And then the third movement returns to the nature and characteristic of the first movement, but in rondo style, meaning the first theme will come back after the pianist takes 3 different forays, and these are all individually very virtuosic displays, and each time returns to the theme, then goes away, comes back to the theme, and goes away again, and the whole thing ends in this robust explosion of piano and orchestra competing to the end. So it is absolutely a very romantic concerto. It has moments of great tenderness and intimacy, and it has moments of unbelievable explosive virtuosity. It's no wonder that Liszt took this concerto up in Europe. So while MacDowell was propagating his name in the United States, Liszt was doing a favor for him in Europe. And MacDowell was very much respected by a lot of his peers, George Chadwick, Arthur Foote, Amy Beach, and others. And for very strange reason, critics named him the greatest American composer. It wasn't until later when Copland established the sound world for American sound, but I'm sure MacDowell was very pleased with that distinction. Can't wait for our audiences to hear it. One of the rarest things of this MacDowell's second piano concerto is it had fallen off the map, was restored to the map in the 40s. In fact, André Watts, as a very young man, performed it with the New York Philharmonic, and you can also hear that on YouTube, but it's got a still photo of him at the age he was performing it with the New York Philharmonic and Leonard Bernstein, by the way. And then later on, in the digital age, he recorded it with the Dallas Symphony. And earlier, other great American composers, including Van Cliburn, took up this concerto. As rare as it is still being performed. The music is easily published and available, and the Rogue Valley Symphony is the place to come and experience this amazing display of musical and compositional skill as well as piano skill with Michael Stephen Brown. So many ways to prepare yourself, and then after the performance, relive the Rogue Valley Symphony performance by listening to it again with either Van Cliburn or André Watts. So that's my little presentation on the MacDowell's second piano concerto.